Experimental Puppetry Theater, or XPT, is a yearly program hosted by the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta. The program assembles artists of all disciplines to create bold, original works of puppetry for adult audiences. On this episode of Under the Puppet, we find out what taking part in XPT is all about as we talk to puppeteer Jennifer Himes, who created a piece for the 2019 XPT program. You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. Under the Puppet is made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons. To support the show and hear new episodes before anyone else, become a patron. Visit patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media for more information. And thank you for your support. Welcome to the show that talks to puppeteers about the art and business of puppetry. My name is Grant Pachoco, and this is Under the Puppet. Welcome to a special episode of Under the Puppet focused on the Center for Puppetry Arts' Experimental Puppetry Theater program. This puppet incubator, if you will, challenges artists to create new experimental puppetry pieces for adults. My guest this episode is puppeteer Jennifer Himes, who produced a piece for XPT's 2019 program. And we chat about the program, how she got involved, and what she learned from the experience. Here now is my interview with Jennifer Himes. Well, Jennifer Himes, welcome to Under the Puppet.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you about the Center for Puppetry Arts Experimental Puppet Theater, but first I want to get to know a little bit about you. You are a puppeteer who lives in Orlando, Florida, correct?
Yes, the land of the mouse.
The land of the mouse. And what kind of puppetry do you do in Orlando?
Well, I work mainly inside of a parade float at Universal Studios, so my puppets are normally a combination of rod and animatronic puppets. So I move them around with the rods, and then their faces are animated with animatronic motors and such. So,
right, and you you perform a couple times a day with those puppets?
Yes, I perform. Let's see, 3 20-minute sets, I think, and then there's one parade that is about 40 to 45 minutes long. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
it's hot.
It's hot. Yeah. Stuck in the float.
Very hot.
But you also do work with, if I'm saying this right, Michelle Lee Puppets too, right?
Michelle Lee, yeah.
Michelle Lee.
Yeah. I work for Michelle Lee Puppets with a touring show. I tour to preschools in the area, and I perform a show called Rhyme Time. It's really fun. There's a giant pop-up book and some little monster puppets that I use to introduce kids to rhyming words, and that helps them later on when they're learning how to read and everything. So.
Right, excellent. And that's that is like a local company, right? And they do.
Yes, it's a local nonprofit.
A local nonprofit, mm-hmm. Right? And they do. You've worked on a bunch of their videos, right? They've done a ton of videos too.
Yeah. They try to do some videos every once in a while, and I was able to help them with the Inner and Outer Planets video, and that's the main one that I was able to help with recently, and some shadow puppet videos that they do for orchestras and stuff in the area.
Great. Well, I will link to some of those things in the show notes for this episode so people can check it out.
Sure.
But today we are talking about your participation in the Center for Puppetry Arts Experimental Puppetry Theater, or XPT. Uh-huh. Could you tell, for folks who don't know, a little bit about what XPT is?
Yeah. XPT is an opportunity that the Center for Puppetry Arts puts together for anyone who wants to learn more about the art of puppetry, or anyone who has a unique idea and maybe they don't quite know how to make it work. It's meant to become kind of a community of people. So they put together a schedule of meetings and updates. And so you have due dates for every part of the process. And if you have an idea and you don't quite know how to make it work on stage or on video, there are other people in the group who might know how to put it together, or you can bounce ideas off of them and work with them to make your idea become reality.
Right. And when did you first hear about XPT?
Oh goodness, it was probably quite a few years ago that I heard about it, but I didn't really know much about it. And then one of my, I guess you can call her my boss, but she's also my friend, Jamie Donlawyer. She works at Michelin Puppets as well. She made an installation piece last year and asked me to come over and help a little bit, maybe bounce off some ideas. And she was telling me about it. So I learned a lot more about it from her. And then this year, I just saw a post online about XPT, and I had this idea, and I was like, Jamie, should I maybe do this? And she was like, yes, go, do it. Why are you asking me?
Yeah, I know Jamie as well. Jamie's fantastic. So I'm glad that she egged you on to do that.
Oh, yes.
What was the application process like?
It was much like applying for a grant. Because it is essentially applying for a grant. So there was a storyboard I had to give to them. I had to give them a full script and some ideas about what I wanted it to look like, what the puppets were going to be, and about how much I assumed it would cost and all of that. So it was a little bit involved, but I had the story fully written already. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I had maybe part of the hardest parts of it done at that point. And then the application was just putting down ideas and submitting them into the form. And then there was an interview after that, and then there was acceptance after that. I don't know what else to tell you about that.
Oh no, that's great. Well, your piece this year was called Dragonfire. Can you tell us a bit about the story of Dragonfire?
Yes. So there's a larger story attached to Dragonfire, but this particular part of it, in the end, it became about how stories help people who are suffering. And there's a little girl in the story. Her name is Kenna, and she and the storyteller have to use this magical gift from a dragon to fight off the evil creatures that have mind manipulation powers. So, it's kind of a light over darkness, good versus evil kind of a story.
And so this is part of a longer piece, but you were just going to put up a portion of it, right?
Yes. This was mainly for me to introduce the story and the characters to an audience and see how it would be accepted. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's successful in that way. So.
Yeah, I think that, this program sounds like it would be a good place to, like if you had a full-length play or a full-length piece, to just, but you needed a little goose to kind of get the first part of it done just to see if it'll work. This seems like a good program to do that with.
Yeah. If you have an idea and you need a deadline, that's what I used it for. I wanted to make a short piece that was related to Dragonfire and with my characters in the story. And I can't do that unless I have a deadline.
Right.
So I used it for that, and it was extremely helpful. Very good experience.
Where do you see Dragonfire evolving to at the end? Like, is it always a live theater piece, or do you see it as a film, or what do you see your grand plans for the piece?
I think it would work best as a short film. Mm-hmm. the longer story, I would still like to experiment with different ways of communicating it. But I think it might work on a stage. I think it just depends on the circumstances. I guess.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more experimenting to do, but definitely this little piece of the story, kind of an origin story, worked very well on stage with the type of puppets I used.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to ask. In the piece that you did, you used bunraku or tabletop style puppetry. Was that the plan from the very beginning to use that style of puppetry?
There was a lot of bouncing around of ideas. That was the only logical choice in the end was to use tabletop puppets. There was ideas of Kenna being a human actress and making a full body Dubian suit and having a huge dragon, and all this stuff was in my mind, but I decided that it would be better to have a show that could fit inside of my small car. So, and that way I could take it to festivals and stuff if I wanted to. So, I decided to use tabletop puppets, and they almost the entire show fits inside of a tub, a storage tub that fits in my car, and the tub also becomes kind of a play table on top of the stage. So
yeah, so it's very self-contained. You can pop it up anywhere.
Yeah, very self-contained. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I really like how it turned out. I had some bigger visions in the beginning, but I'm glad that it turned out nice and small.
Yeah. Well, as part of XPT, you do receive some funds, but you also used Indiegogo to help bring Dragonfire to life. Why did you go with Indiegogo as opposed to like other fundraising platforms like Kickstarter or GoFundMe?
The straightforward answer to that is that Indiegogo lets you keep more of the money that you raise. And if you use Kickstarter, if you don't get fully funded, then you don't get the money at all. So Indiegogo lets you keep more of the money.
Yeah. And what sort of rewards did you offer people who pledged to your campaign?
I made some art that went with the story, and so I put together sticker designs and poster designs and things like that as rewards that I can send to people. And then I also recorded a lot of the process, and I would send update videos to some of the people. If you donated a certain amount, you would get update videos throughout the whole process.
Yeah, and those are really cool. And I want to ask you about those in a little bit. But if you were going to run a campaign like this again, an Indiegogo campaign, is there anything that you would do different?
The only thing I can think of is maybe having more of the art finished before I started the campaign. But honestly, I can't. It went very well, so I can't think of very much that I would do differently at this moment. I might be able to think of something later.
Right. Well, let's talk about the building of the show. Once you were accepted and you knew it was happening, where did you start?
Well, I'd kind of already begun building the show, but I did start over. So I had already started building some of the puppets, but I wasn't completely happy with them, so I scrapped them and started over. I hadn't gotten very far into making them, but I did start over. After that, it was kind of building, starting to, I draw out the puppets full scale, and then figuring out what materials will work best for each one. And each one is different. So I built this type of puppet before a couple times, and so I knew the direction I was going. I just didn't quite know how it would work on the scale of each puppet and for what each puppet needed to do. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I also had to make the majority of each puppet had to be made inside my small apartment room. So I didn't have woodworking station. I didn't have, a lot of space to spread out. So it all had to be done on the tiny little floor space that I have. So I used a lot of popsicle sticks because they're already, nice and cut to one size. And I was like, oh, hey, look, this is just long enough for this shoulder piece. I'm going to use this. And so popsicle sticks and string and foam and a lot of, trial and error.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of trial and error. So, and then once they were built to a certain point, I couldn't do any more until I tested them. And I'm just myself, and tabletop puppets require at least 2 puppeteers. So I recruited some friends that I work with, and we were allowed to work at Michelin. So I got some support from Michelin, and that way we were able to use their workshop space to rehearse and to test the puppets. And so after we did some testing and figuring out what works and what doesn't, then I was able to continue building them until they were finished.
And how many total puppets are in the piece?
There are, 4 puppets. And there were going to be more, but we cut it down to 4 main puppets, and then there's several shadow puppets as well.
And overall, do you know approximately how long the build took you?
Oh, goodness. From January to when did I perform this?
Yeah, well, the show was in May, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, May.
So January to May. Yeah.
Earlier this month. Yeah. Yeah. So it took a few months to put it all together.
And I know at least one. Actually, I think more. But a couple of the puppets had like kind of lights integrated into them as well, right?
Yes, that was probably the main experimental part of my experimental piece, because the characters in Dragonfire have the power to manipulate fire. It comes from inside of them. The idea is everyone has Dragonfire, but everyone uses it differently. Not everyone uses it the same way. And so, I couldn't have real fire on stage, right? So, and with puppets, that would probably not work out. So I wanted to figure out a way to create a fire effect that was mobile and did not require like a massive fan or, weird lighting. I just wanted something very simple that I could place into the hand of a puppet. And so I found these little LED lights, and they were perfect because I could magnetize them to the hand. So each hand had a little magnet inside, and I could drop the LED light onto the hand, and it would stay upright. So, and I could also move the hand even upside down, and it would all stay on there. So, nice strong magnet. The problem I had was the lights glow blue, not warm like fire. so I had to figure out how to change the color of the light. And so I was at Michelin, and they have this beautiful wall of materials, just boxes and boxes of materials and things. And so I was pulling out boxes and trying to figure out what would change. Maybe this Easter egg will change. No, that doesn't work. Maybe this piece of no, that won't work either. Pulling out random things to try to figure out what would change the color. I tried painting them, all different things, and it wasn't working out. And so, in the back of Michelin, there was a thing, like a prop of some kind with silk flowers on it. I was like, oh, maybe silk flowers. Hey, look at that. So, in the end, it was silk flowers, and I just bought a whole bunch of fire lily type flowers and cut their petals all off of them and glued them all around the LED light, and then added a little feather in the top, and that was the fire puppet. So we had a whole bunch of little fire puppets.
Yeah, well, they look great. They look the end result was really great. Yeah,
it was kind of fun, but it was also really frustrating. Like, I don't know how this is gonna work, but they actually ended up really, really great.
Yeah. Well, during this time, during the build, did you get any support from the Center of Puppetry Arts and XPT?
I did. I would send updates to them, and if I had questions or anything, I was always welcome to ask. I had a lot of support here that from Jamie, from Michelin, and from my friends that were helping me, and so I feel like it wasn't as, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe, but it wasn't as needed for me to, I was, if I was there, I was welcome to work there. And a lot of people who were involved in XPT did work there at the center to create their piece. But because I was out of state, I didn't have that opportunity as much. So when we did get there for the first tech rehearsal, there were a few things that had to be done. So we were allowed to work in the center workshop, and that was wonderful. We had everything we needed and space and everything. So yes, lots of support, lots of help, and as much as we needed from them. So that was great.
That's good to know. Well, and you kind of touched on this before, because of the nature of tabletop puppetry, the puppets need at least 2 puppeteers, if not more. Yeah. How many puppeteers total did you need for the project?
I used 4 puppeteers. We probably could have used more, but 4 puppeteers worked perfectly.
Were you one of those 4 puppeteers?
Yes.
Yes.
So there were 3 others, including myself. Yeah.
And how did you go about finding these puppeteers?
Honestly, they came to me mostly. I did not have to look hard. I have friends here who, as soon as they heard about the project, even from the very beginning, when I first started writing it, they would say, if you ever need help with this, let us know, and we'll be there. And so when it was time to start putting stuff together, I knew who to contact, and they came right away. During the first meeting at the center, there was, because they meet at certain times, I wasn't able to go to all of the meetings, but the first one I was able to go to, and I got to meet most everyone who was involved, and there were a lot of people working on films, and working on other pieces. And after I presented my piece and we had time to kind of mingle and talk to each other, I had maybe 5 or so just strangers, people I'd never met before, come up to me and say, "We want to be part of your project. What do you need?" And I said, "I need performers, I think." And they said, "Okay, well, we might not know exactly what to do, but we want to learn." And like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So this is amazing. And so I got their email addresses and kept them up to date as much as possible throughout the whole process. I sent them rehearsal footage and everything I thought they might need to know about the puppets so that they would know how they work and what the show looks like and all of that. So, and then when I got there, they were ready to go. And I mean, they had never touched the puppets before, but they picked it up and they did an amazing job. So it turned out really great. I was a little concerned for a minute, but it turned out great.
How long is the piece overall? I mean, not the full Dragonfire piece, but the piece you wound up presenting.
It is about 7 minutes long. It couldn't be any more than 10 minutes guidelines, XPT guidelines. And so, it's all right in there with 7 minutes.
Yeah. Well, sound and music are a big part of your piece as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you developed that aspect of it?
That goes back to my college days, actually. I had a friend in college. Her name is Judy Morehouse. And when we were hanging out together, she and I would say, "Jen's going to make a thing, whatever it is, and Judy is going to write music for it." And so we kind of already knew that we were going to do that at one point. And so when I needed music, I knew exactly who to call. And I said, "Judy, I'm making a thing. And do you want to write music for it?" And she did. And it's beautiful, beautiful music.
Mm-hmm. And you also did pre-recorded voices for this instead of performing the voices live. Why did you decide to go that direction?
Well, that's mainly because I knew that the puppeteers who would be actually performing it would only have a very short time to learn the performance. And because they were also doing other pieces in XPT as well. So I knew that they were very busy and that they would have a very short time to learn all of the lines and everything. So I said, it sounds like it would be a lot easier for everyone if I just have it all recorded. And it also makes it a lot easier for the people in the sound booth because the timing of the script was timed to the music. Everything was in one file, and they just had to hit play and let it go to the end.
Right.
So it just streamlined it for everyone, I think. And I'm, I wasn't going to do it at first, and then I did, and it just turned out so much better, I think, than what it would have been. And Nate Beagle is the one who let us use his studio, and he also voiced the Dubian. So if anyone gets a chance to hear it, he lent his voice and his studio space to us, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
Some of the best things that happened, I think, in the creating of the show were actually when I decided to let go of something and let somebody else do their job. So letting go of the music and letting Judy do her thing and letting go of some smaller aspects, maybe, and just letting other people do what they do best. And that's, I think, some of the best parts of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, it frees you up to be more creative on the show as well. If you let
Sure,
other people
yeah.
deal with it.
And yeah, I was able to focus on building, and Judy, I could trust that Judy had the music down. I wasn't worried about it at all. And she did come up with some beautiful stuff, and I, let other people voice the characters, and I voiced Kenna, but then my friend Kelsey voiced the storyteller, and then Nate Beagle voiced the Dubian, and just letting go of some of those things just made everything so much better.
Yeah. Well, when the show moved from the Orlando area to Atlanta for the performances, were there any unexpected issues that popped up?
If they were unexpected, it was so small, and that it was very easy to just fix it very quickly. I think maybe there was some stuff with the shadow puppets, but again, it was so small that I can't even think of anything very specific at this point.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I feel like we knocked out a lot of stuff beforehand, and kind of, like I said, it was so streamlined that, and I had so much help. I think I had really good help that I don't think that it really was all that unexpected. Also, there were some things that I knew had to be figured out when we got there. So some of the things that might be unexpected for some people or for some other shows or something, for me, I was just, I don't know what it's going to be, so we'll figure it out when we're there. And so a lot of rough stuff that got smoothed out while we were there.
Right. Well, how many performances did you do of Dragonfire at XPT?
I think I did about 7 in total. Maybe not including the tech rehearsals and dress rehearsal. There were 2 preview nights, and then it was open to the public.
And how did it feel to finally get the piece up in front of an audience?
Well, it's kind of a typical answer, maybe, but it felt kind of surreal. And I think it's so soon afterwards, I still kind of feel like it's unreal, but it was very good. It was a good experience. Like, I feel very grateful for having an experience.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned this earlier, but one thing that I love that you did, and you did this for the people who donated on Indiegogo, but you also did this on your Instagram feed and stuff, was you kind of documented your experience in behind the scenes photos, and then you did rehearsal videos and stuff like that. And I've heard this called in the past, when artists do this, showing your work. Do you think that showing your work is something that artists should do?
That, I think, really depends on the artist. In my case, I was required to document as much of it as possible for the director so he could see my progress, because I was out of state. So, but in a broad sense, in general, I think it depends on how comfortable the artist is with people seeing unfinished work. Some artists are not comfortable with that. Some artists don't like the transparency or the vulnerability of putting work in progress out for all the world to see. But for me, it can be very encouraging, and it can be gratifying when other people see even just work in progress and they're like, "That looks awesome. Thanks, it's cardboard and paint." And I think that in general, it gets people interested in the project that you're working on. So, I when I put unfinished work out there, people would say, "What is this?" and look into it and learn more about the project.
Yeah,
it builds interest, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on the whole process, what was your biggest challenge of this?
Oh goodness, only a few things come to mind. There might be things that were big challenges, but because I had so much support and good friends helping me and things like that, I feel like they became less of a frustration. There were moments in building that became points of frustration. For instance, the dragon wings at one point worked, and then they just decided not to. And when I tried putting them on to the dragon body itself, they just decided to flop over. And that was I'm a little bitter at those wings still, I think. They didn't want to stay horizontal. They wanted to hang down somehow. I don't know. But I got it figured out, and everything was fine in the end. But those wings, man, they made me very angry. Yeah, just some minor frustrations with building, I think, still come to my mind as being some of the most difficult parts. But in the end, they all smoothed themselves out, and everything was fine.
Well, would you apply to be involved with XPT again?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Are you already thinking of new ideas to present?
I don't right now, but if I ever have another idea that would work, I think I would definitely do it again. It's it kind of ate up a few months of my life, but the end result was so good that I would, if I had the chance, I would do it again.
Mm-hmm. And what is next for Dragonfire? Do you have plans of what the next step is going to be for your project? Or you're just happy to be done with the show? You don't want to think about it for a month?
For right now, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. It was an awesome experience, but I'm very glad that it's done. And I think the next step for Dragonfire is to just maybe go back to the story and make sure that it's well written and everything, and then maybe one day looking into making it a short film. But other than that, the Dragonfire has been temporarily shelved.
All right.
For now.
Yeah, for now. Well, you mentioned earlier, a little bit earlier on, that it's something you might possibly bring to a festival or something to put up in a festival.
Yes. Well, yeah, the show that I made for XPT, I would love to take to a festival or to a slam or whatever. I might actually take it to a slam here in the area.
Oh, great.
This year, if that happens, it's still kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd definitely perform it again if I get the chance. But as a whole, the larger portion of Dragonfire, definitely, because it is such a big project, I definitely kind of hold on that for a little bit until I know exactly what I need to do with it. So
right.
The best way of communicating the story and the message and everything.
Right. Well, if people would like to connect with you on the internet, where can they do that?
Well, I'm on Instagram a lot. My personal account is J Heimsey, so it's just the letter J, my last name, with a Y at the end. And then my professional account, if you're just interested in art and puppetry and not like random stuff that I post, then you would look for Purlicue Magic. And that's PURLICUE Magic. And then my website is also purlicuemagic.com.
Excellent. Well, I will have links to all those things in the show notes for this episode. And Jennifer, just thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your experience. And I'm sure, I know for me and for people out there, they really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks.
Many thanks to Jennifer Himes for being on this episode. For links to Jennifer's website and social media accounts, visit the show notes for this episode number 29B, at underthepuppet.com. For info on the Center for Puppetry Arts Experimental Puppetry Theater Program, visit puppet.org and click on Programs for Adults and Teens. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Under the Puppet. I welcome your feedback via email at hello@saturdaymorningmedia.com or via Twitter, where the show is at username Under the Puppet. You can also get in touch with us via Facebook, where you can find the show's page by searching for Under the Puppet. I want to hear your suggestions for questions I should be asking and for future guests. Let me know who I should be talking to. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you next time on Under the Puppet. This episode of Under the Puppet featured music by Dan Ring and was edited by Steven Staver. Under the Puppet is a production of Saturday Morning Media and is made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly pledge for as little as $1 a month. Patrons get new episodes before they are released, behind-the-scenes information, and exclusive bonus content. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly pledge today. You can also tell a friend about the show or leave the show a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. Under the Puppet is copyright 2019 Saturday Morning Media Grant Pachoco executive producer. All rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.